Set Phasers, a highly illogical Star Trek podcast.
Oops, mute. Hello!
It has begun.
It has begun. We are here yet again.
Yes, once again. This is our 5th episode.
It is. I can't believe we've done a month of this already.
Yeah, lucky number 5.
And people watch it.
People are watching, and even more upsetting, they're listening.
Yeah, that too. Gosh,
Yes.
they are. So if you are listening and tuning into our show, welcome to Set Phasers. I am Steph Mans.
And I am Aki Burmese, and this is a highly illogical Star Trek podcast.
That it is.
The wonderful Star Trek Discovery franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Today's stardate is stardate 10807.8, and we will be discussing episodes 5 and 6 of season 1. Today is the day that we have decided we need to accelerate our going through the episodes so that we can get through all of them in time for the premiere of season 3, which is October 15th or 13th or something like that. Seems far off, but when you've got 20-something episodes to get through and quite a lot of material, that can become daunting. So we're doing 2 episodes today. We're doing the first episode, episode 5, is called Choose Your Pain.
Yeah.
And episode 6 is called
I can't pronounce it.
Lethe? Well, look, you'll be happy to know.
We looked that up. Did you Google it?
As always. Of course I Googled it. Oh, it's very quiet.
Is it?
But it's still very funky. No, it was silent.
Too quiet?
It was too quiet for people to hear.
Oh.
Quite how funky our
really?
grooving, our Googling was. For
you
me,
want more?
I don't know.
Oh,
Listen,
it was a normal, was it a normal volume?
No, it was not. No,
it was not?
No, it was very quiet.
Oh dear, I'll have to fix that.
If you want to know, you can Google it, but...
Let's see. See if I can make this just a tad louder. Better?
Still very quiet. No, I think I'm only hearing it in your headphones, actually.
Oh, okay. All right, I'll fix that in a minute.
That's no worries. Listen, should we mention the small sausage in the room?
Yes, let's mention my sausage. This is little Lady, and Lady is terrified of thunderstorms.
And one has just begun here.
Yes, it has.
As we were going live, so.
And she likes to howl, so it's rather fun. So she either gets to now she wants to get down, but
she's
yes,
a
this was
Allen Ginsberg.
Yes, in an effort to stop her from doing that. Yes, so there we go. There she's starting again. That's interesting. So my okay, let's try that. Better?
No. Alas,
this is going to be awkward.
This is going to be interesting. Yeah.
Oh dear.
Well, I can just recreate all these musical cues just on the fly.
I know what I did. I think I figured it out. Do you want to Google it again?
I would like to Google it.
You can Google that.
So many technical settings.
You can
Google that.
I can no longer sing those notes, so I don't know how that's.
How did you do it?
I have no idea. It's too low for me.
You can Google. I can't do it.
You can Google that.
Okay.
We're going to edit this out for the actual podcast.
No one needs this.
No one needs to hear that.
This is priceless material. This is why people tune in to see Set Phasers.
Yes, the awkwardness of us.
Well,
because
we're
awkward human beings.
Yeah, we're very awkward.
Obviously.
But extremely suave from like here to like here.
Yep.
Yeah. I apologize for this. I have a little bit of a delay, just so you know.
Oh dear.
Yeah. The echo thing.
Okay.
I don't know if that's coming through for the folks. But listen, you know, I can talk right through an echo.
I believe you can. I also think I know what that is.
Oh, well, I have the utmost faith in you.
Lots of new things, new
Captain, it is an honor to serve under a captain like you.
Mm-hmm. Is that better?
No, it's not.
Okay.
Still an echo.
Good Lord.
But we can move on. Listen. Or I can entertain our live listeners while we figure this out.
Yep.
Because we can always cut this out of the actual podcast. So listen, if you're tuning in live, you're getting a special behind the scenes experience where this is what it's like when Steph has to fix something important.
Yep.
And all I have to do is keep talking, which is
on the fly.
One of my top three talents is talking. The echo has now turned to it's in chorus. It's impressive. I'm hearing two. No, it's still there. Now it's one. The chorus has gone away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One echo.
One echo. Yes.
I think it's fine for everyone else. It's just not for you.
Great. What do
Sorry.
I care? Listen. This will be interesting for me. Okay. Well, so should we go on?
Let's go on.
It's
All
time
right.
to run it down.
Now I can't hear it. Oh dear. There are things I possibly should have tested before all this sort of kicked off.
You are listen. I don't know if people know this, but what you've got going on over there is like literally the deck of the Enterprise.
It is a little bit. It's rather complicated.
What I have is like Picard's ready room, just paper. I'm just here with pencils, pens, little whistles, books, must-steal books. And I depend upon you like a captain depends upon you're the whole crew.
Thank you. I'm doing my best. I feel like
I'm like on screen. Send them to my ready room. Fix this thing. Do this. What's the universal translator? We need to hit 1977. Get it done. You know.
Thank you so much, Aki. Well, tell you what. I think the rundown might work now.
It's time to
Nope,
run it.
not working. Wonderful.
And I still have an echo. So maybe just make it so you can hear it. I don't need to hear myself say ridiculous things. More so than I already do because that's what I'm doing now. I'm just talking. No, now you're muted.
Can you not hear the?
No, I hear your headphones, which is fine.
No, it's not. This should be working.
Okay.
Well,
Let's
let's
make it
pretend
happen.
we heard the rundown. So the rundown just happened.
Boom.
Rundown
So the
music.
rundown
Wait.
just happened. Oh. Waiting.
No,
Did you just say wait?
No, I said it go. It happened.
Oh, okay, great. Fantastic. Okay. Episode 5, Star Trek Discovery. It's called Choose Your Pain. And let me tell you, it is a real whopper. So we begin with a dream sequence, essentially Michael moving in first person the ship Discovery, and then she comes down into the engineering science lab. She sees herself behind the terminals, and then she's looking into the containment space where the tardigrade normally is, and it's her. She's looking at her, and that's when we're like, okay, this is a dream. And then the weird huge needles come out, poke her, and she goes, she freaks out, and then she wakes up in a cold sweat in her room on the Star Trek Discovery. And she looks over at her roommate Tilly, who is snoring. And so I guess she's still troubled from last episode when she sort of realized, started to have empathy for the tardigrade to worry that maybe it was sentient, was feeling pain whenever they were using it to go through the mycelial network. So she calls upon Dr. Colbert to come and check out the tardigrade. She says, listen, I'm not anthropomorphizing. This is me concerned that this is an intelligent life and that it's in pain and that we're possibly killing it by using our spore drive. And so Colbert is a little skeptical, but he says, you know what? I'll look at it. I'll check it out. So then we do a cut to Lorca, who I guess is on Earth? Is that what it was? He's in like a meeting with the Admiralty, and they're like, "Oh, you're doing a great job, Discovery. Thanks for figuring out that whole spore drive thing. It's going great. You're really kicking butt in this war. You're turning things around. And we just want to let you know that we want you to stop using the spore drive." And Lorca's like, "What? Absolutely not. We got to be out there on the front lines. This is a war." And the Admiralty's sort of like, "Listen, we don't want you to give away our secret weapons, so rein in your use of the spore drive as much as possible unless we ask you to." To which Lorca is not happy. Nonetheless, I don't think he has many options. He goes to the mattresses, but they won't let him use the spore drive. Oh, you're muted now. I can't hear you. Whatever you just said.
I said go to the mattresses. It's a guy thing.
It is a real guy like peacocking thing. It always is interesting to me that I guess captains are given a great amount of latitude, but he's in a room full of like six admirals. And they're like, here's a direct order. He's like, what? You're out of your minds. You can't like that's the Star Trek thing. That's the Federation thing. Captains are sort of like sovereign on their ships. And the Admiralty can give orders, but it can be like argued. I don't know. We don't need to explore that. But we will. Anyway, we go back to Tilly and Michael, and they're having breakfast. And lunch, and Tilly says, "We're going to have lunch because I want to know what's going on there." And the echo just went away. Is that on purpose?
Might be. Trying a few things.
You're making it do what it do. So they're at lunch, and Tilly says, "What's going on in your mind? Why are you so freaked out? What's going on?" And Michael says, "I don't want to talk about it." And Tilly says, "Fine, okay, well, great. We must be making a lot of friends, so I guess our relationship is over." And Michael's like, "No, that's not it. It's not you, it's me." And Tilly says something to the effect of, "That's so rarely been the case for me. I would love for you to explain how it is you and not me." And then Michael sort of says like, "Hey, I'm just feeling all these weird feelings. I'm out of sorts, and I hate it." And Tilly's response, which is one of my favorite Tilly quotes, maybe of all time, is, "I love feeling feelings." Which is fantastic. I also love feeling feelings.
And then Michael says it later. I feel like
she does. She says something to that effect. Well, when she's
I'm feeling the feelings.
When she's talking to, well, we don't want to get ahead of
ourselves.
Wait,
we're going
spoiler,
Yep, sorry, foreshadowing. My bad.
Come on, we haven't gotten to this part. So okay, right. We go back to Lorca and the Admiral Catherine. Oh no, Caldwell. That's not her name. Cantwell?
Cornwell.
Cornwell.
Cumberbatch.
Admiral Cornwell. I don't know. I was just going for Cumberbatch makes me think of cucumber patch for some reason. Admiral Cornfield. He's in there like injecting his eyes. As you may recall, he's got like an eye darkness light sensitivity. So he's like putting some weird stuff in his eyes. And the Admiral, who was mainly chewing him out, comes back in. Her name is Catherine Cornwall, but he calls her Cat. And so clearly they're like friends, and she's having kind of a heart-to-heart with him. And he's like, "Oh, you really reamed me out in there." And she's like, "You think I reamed you out? I was just letting you know I'm your friend, and I'm letting you know that people are, talking about you, and they want to know what's going on. You got, a convicted felon, our only mutineer ever on your ship who you've commandeered." And he like cites standard code or something that allows him to conscript anyone he wants. And she goes, "Okay, listen, but people are not happy about this Michael Burnham situation." And he says, as he leaves, "My ship, my way." Yeah. I don't know. So cut to, he's like flying back on a shuttle, I assume from wherever he was meeting. I think it's Earth, but I just don't know. He's flying they never really make it clear. He's flying on a shuttle, one pilot. He's kind of just kicking back there, doing the eyeball thing again. And suddenly, out of nowhere, Klingon ship shows up. It gets them in a tractor beam. It pulls them up. They both get ready to fight. They open the doors. They are overwhelmed by Klingon forces. The pilot is violently killed with like 2 Batleth strikes to the abdomen. And thereafter, Lorel shows up. I'd noticed that white dress with red fangs anywhere, and she slams Lorca against the wall because she's Klingon and he's just a puny human. And she's like, "Oh, Captain Lorca, welcome aboard." and they take him and they kind of throw him into a ship. So it's reported to the Discovery crew that Lorca's been captured. Saru is acting captain. So this is like Saru's big dream, right?
Yep.
And he's kind of on the bridge, and he's like, you do this and you do that and you do this, and he's like, it's so Saru. He's like, do these sectors and find this thing, and then suddenly his like his threat ganglia come out, and Michael walks on the bridge, and he's like, no, you're ruining it, Michael, is what I sort of interpreted that moment as. No,
This is my thing.
this is my thing.
Yeah.
Michael's like his like little sister who keeps showing up to take his stuff. Okay. Sorry, that got personal.
It's fine.
Anyway, so Michael's like, hey, I just wanted to tell you that I don't think we should use this board drive. She doesn't know that the captain's been captured. She's like, I think the tardigrade we're killing it. And Saru kind of takes his hard line with her, which is interesting, which I don't think he would do if he didn't have the weight of the captaincy upon him. But he's like, listen, we got to save the captain. So I don't care what happens to this tardigrade. You keep that spore drive working. We got to go into Klingon territory, and we got to get the captain back, and we got to get out. So I order you to continue to keep the spore drive active, and we can discuss this after we have the captain back. Is that understood? He says, and she says yes. And then we go back to Captain Lorca, who's been thrown into a prison, into like a jail cell on this Klingon ship, and it's an interesting moment for a number of reasons, because one prominent member of there's like 4 people in the cell. He gets thrown in, and he meets Rainn Wilson.
Yes.
Well, not Rainn Wilson, but I mean, yeah, Rainn Wilson is playing
Harry Mudd.
Harry Mudd, which if I'm just having like a nerd explosion in my head even talking about it. If you know the original series, you know Harry Mudd. He is an inveterate, irredeemable con man, rogue, and scoundrel. He cares about no one but himself and lining his pockets. He appears in at least 2 that I can recall original series episodes, and he always is doing something deplorable. So, and also perfect casting for Harry Mudd. Fantastic. Rainn Wilson, he's a prisoner with Lorca, and he's like, they discuss what's going on. You're on the ship. Some Klingons come into the cell, and they point their guns at Mudd, and they say, choose your pain.
Yeah.
And he points at a prisoner in the corner, and the Klingons proceed to beat the crap out of this guy and then drag his they like lay his head on the wall and then stomp on it, which I think means they kill him, but whatever. And then they drag the body away, and they basically explain that the Klingons will come in every couple days, pick a prisoner, and say, like, we can either kill you or you can choose your pain, choose someone else to get beaten and killed in your place. And so that is where the title of this lighthearted episode, yes.
Yeah.
Killed or
Because that
tortured.
guy'd been like beaten and whatever. Because
Yeah.
Mudd had been like, yep, him.
Yeah, well,
Every time.
Mudd was he's obviously experiencing the deprivations of being in a Klingon cell, but he was not like beaten and jacked up the way the other ones were. And that's when we meet Lieutenant Ash Tyler, who's another prisoner in the cell. And he and Lorca obviously bond immediately, and Lorca's like, who are you, soldier? Who's your captain? Who'd you serve under? And Ash is like, listen, I served under a captain whose name I forgot to write down. That's Aki talking, on the USS Jaeger. And they were at the Battle of the Binary Stars.
Yes.
And that is when it's revealed that this war has been going on for 7 months, because Lorca then goes, you've been in this prison cell for 7 months?
Yeah.
And that's...
And he says, the Battle of the Binary. And he's like, oh, it's got a name.
He's like, oh, they gave it a name. Yeah. So interesting. We come upon and Ash is looking a lot more beat up than Mudd, right? I mean, Mudd looks like he's hungry, and he's got a beard, and he's got that weird robot scorpion firefly he calls Stuart with him. But
I didn't know it was a robot. Just thought it was a well-trained
oh, it could be an alien. Well,
Yeah.
it's definitely like bionetic, or whatever the words would be for that. Yeah, I'd call it bionetic. Anyway, we go back to the Discovery, and Michael, in flagrant disregard for what Saru has told her, goes and tells Stamets that, hey, like, we're killing the tardigrade. We got to figure something else out. And she and Stamets and Tilly are like just jamming, just like bebop jazz on some science in the science lab, which is pretty great. And they're like, blah, 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 blah. It incorporates with the tardigrade is able to have a horizontal transfer of DNA. And so it's horizontally transfer the DNA from the fungus, which is connected to the mycelial network, which is like the roots of the fungus, which exists in the real world, but also exists in this sort of quantum world where it allows us to have a matrix for the entire universe. And so we can travel anywhere. And so they discover that you can, if you can find a creature smart enough or like evolved enough and give it the DNA, then it can also act as a pilot on the mycelial network and bridging the ship. And I think this is actually our first F-bomb in the show, right? Tilly drops a big F-bomb.
Yes, she does.
And
Michael drops the S-bomb.
Michael
before.
drops the S-bomb in like
I think the
episode
last
2,
one.
right? Or 3, whenever they find the tardigrade.
Yeah.
She says, shit, that worked.
Yes.
But Tilly, as they're like doing this like engineer science-y quantum jazz, Tilly says, this is so fucking cool.
Yep. and then looks and Stamets.
Yeah, Stamets says, you're right. This is so fucking cool. Yeah. And so they're like, we're going to work on a problem. We're going to try to figure this out so that we don't kill the tardigrade. We go back to the Klingon ship, L'Rell's ship, and L'Rell drags Lorca out of the he gets dragged out of the cell by 2 Klingons, and he gets put into a weird chair torture device, and L'Rell is talking to him, and she's trying to get information about Discovery. So this is evidence that the Klingons have discovered that Discovery is sort of the special ship that is helping the Federation get its edge. And then she says some pretty cool stuff, which I'll save for quotable moments. And then she puts a thing on Lorca's eyes, and they open up, and she tortures him with light, and he starts screaming. Back on the Discovery, Saru tries to do a jump and finds out that the spore drive is off, and he goes marching down to the science lab, and he gives Michael a piece of his mind. He is like, this is the same kind of nonsense you did that got our former captain killed. Awkward silence. And then he's like, you better put that tardigrade back in there and get it online. I don't care what happens to it. And he confines Burnham to quarters. When we go back to Lorca and Ash Tyler and Mudd in their prison cell, there's a bit of a fracas. Mm-hmm. And Mudd tries to sort of paint Lorca with like a broad brush of being as morally relativistic as he is. And he mentions the USS Baran, which we have heard mentioned before, but we don't really know the story. And that's when we find out that the Baran was the ship that Lorca used to command that was attacked. And instead of everyone died except for the captain. So it's a little strange because the captain should go down with the ship, you would think. But Lorca is pretty straightforward about saying, I wouldn't let the Klingons capture my crew. So he somehow got out and then hit the self-destruct and preserved himself. Now, for some reason, that kind of smooths things over. But for me, that would be a real sticking point. I'd be a little curious. But I guess this is the early days of the Federation. All right, we get our first black alert. They put the tardigrade back in. They jump into Klingon space. The tardigrade is not happy. It freaks out. And when they get to where they are supposed to go, it does a weird thing where all the water comes out of it, and it turns into a little nautilus on the floor. Mm-hmm. And apparently it's gone to a deep self-protective state. And Culber's like, I can't bring it back without killing it. And Saru says, I don't care what you have to do. You better bring it back. We have to take that risk. And Culber says, I will not be party to murder. And then Saru, I think this is an interesting moment. I know we have to get to the next episode, but I think it's an interesting moment because Saru does essentially makes the same mistake that Michael did. He makes a Michael because he is willing to go against the Federation doctrine to get something done. His desire to get to the objective motivates him past the moral, sort of a moral line in the sand. He decides, I don't care if this thing is intelligent. I don't care if it's going to die if we do this, but we need to get the captain. So you just bring it back, and I don't care if you kill it. Doctor says he won't do it, and Stamets says, I'll do it.
Yep.
Uh,
And I felt Saru had such a moment of wanting to step up to the plate because he sort of, remember when he goes into the captain's ready room and he says to the computer, he's like, extrapolate all of the things that I'm doing and tell me if that makes a good captain.
Yeah, he says, computer, what are the top 5 captains in Federation history? And one of them is Archer. Anyway.
The other 4 I don't think I'd heard of. No, it was Captain Pike. Captain Pike
yes,
was
and
in there
Pike
and
was in
Archer
there.
was
Yes,
in there.
yeah. Pike, who is a concurrent captain to... Anyway, Pike must be great. Well, that's why he's got the Enterprise. We don't need to go into that. The point is, okay, we go back to Tyler and Lorca, and there's another choose your pain moment where they go to Lorca, and Lorca has sort of threatened Mudd with saying, we're going to let them kill you next time they come in and ask me to choose your pain. But instead, Tyler volunteers. He says, do this for me, because he's been being tortured. And also he admits earlier that there's like some kind of weird, like, torture / sexual thing going on with Laurel that we don't really understand. And so he seems like he kind of wants to be put out of his misery. We're not sure. Anyway, they beat the crap out of him. And then they put his head on the thing and they're about to stomp on it. And then he moves his head out of the way in a super fast Federation move. And when he does that, Lorca takes the other phaser from the Klingon and he knocks out of the thing. And then they beat the 2 Klingons and they snap their necks. And they're leaving. And Mudd's like, hey, you played me. You're so smart. And they're like, that's great. Well, you're going to stay here. And they close the door on him. And he's like, you haven't heard the last of me, Lorca. And for obviously we know this is before the original series, so we know he doesn't die in that tail cell. In any case, they go out into the ship and they're like, it's pretty sweet. They're like really like doing a Tango and Cash here, just like killing Klingons and like moving.
I'll go top, you go bottom.
Boom, boom, boom. Oh, that's the next episode. Right. But they do.
They
that.
also do it.
Yes, yeah. Well, this is when it happens. This is when they really bond. This is when the love Lorca and Ash Tyler have is burgeoned. Killing things, and they make it pretty far, but then Tyler gets kind of hit by one of the Klingons that Lorca's able to kill, and so he has to stay behind while Lorca's like, you stay here undercover and I'll find a way to the ship so we can get out of here. And he goes, and then Laurel shows up and she's like, did you think you could get away from me? And then Tyler like freaks out and he starts fighting with her, and he starts really beating the crap out of her, but then she sort of gets the upper hand, and then she's about to maybe kill him, and then boom, Lorca shows back up and shoots her, but misses, and it ricochets off the wall and burns half of her face. Oh, she's hideously scarred and falls to the ground screaming, and he takes Tyler to I forget what they're called, the little Klingon ships that allow them to run super fast. And they manage to get to the Discovery, and because what's his name?
Ash Tyler?
No, the
Mudd.
Saru. Because Saru can recognize like when someone is predator and when someone is prey, he's able to see that even though there's like 5 Klingon ships, one of them is choosing an erratic pattern. That must be the prey, and he's like, that must be the captain. He deduces, yada yada yada. They're able to get the captain and Tyler out of there before the ship is blown up, their little ship. And then he says, is the jump dive ready? And he hears back from Stamets, and Stamets says, we can jump. And they jump. And they get the captain, everything works, and they jump away. And then we come to find out that the way that they did it is Stamets did not kill the tardigrade. He hooked himself up to the machine after he did like a eugenics experiment on himself. So, whoa! That was crazy. He's like, looks like he's dead, and they run down to find him, and then they wake him up, and then he starts laughing like a crazy person, which Anthony Rapp does perfectly. It is so creepy when he like, do we do it? And they're like, yes, and he goes, So Saru and Michael have a little heart-to-heart in their room now that the captain's back, and Saru's like, look, I'm not scared of you, I'm just very mad at you. Which I think is an interesting Easter egg, which we can't even discuss until season 2, but I think that was cute. And Michael's like, hey, I got this from Giorgio, and I think you should have it. And she gives him the telescope that she got as in Giorgio's last will and testament, the last episode. And Michael and Tilly send the tardigrade into space with some magical spores, and it opens up and zooms into the mycelial network. It's free. Then the final moment we see in front of the mirror, and this is when it's revealed that they're a couple, Stamets and Dr. Culber. And Culber's like checking out Stamets with the thing, and he's like, "Stop doctoring me," and they're like, and he's like, "Don't ever do that again. You may not care about yourself, but I care about you." And he just wants to make sure they're both okay. It's a pretty wonderful, tender moment. They're like brushing their teeth in front of the mirror in their beautiful maroon pajamas. Hello.
Oh yeah.
No, I haven't seen anyone else wearing pajamas.
No.
Right? Ooh, man.
Starfleet
I saw those things and I was like,
maroon pajamas.
those are nice pajamas. Anyway, Culber's like, "You sure you're okay?" And he goes, "I'm fine." And then Culber leaves, and then he like looks in the mirror kind of happily like, "Yeah, we did it. We did it today." And then he leaves, and then we do a reverse shot of that. And as he's leaving, we see that his reflection is still in the mirror.
Smash cut!
And that's the end of episode 5, Choose Your Pain. Whew.
Boom.
Man.
Mic drop.
Mic drop. Anyway.
Need some tea.
I
feel
sure
like
do.
that was a lot of stress for you.
Yeah.
You just take a break. We'll we can wait. We'll wait.
Listen. Yeah, because you are wonderful, and you will edit this into a a nice digestible thing later on. I will pour myself a little tea, and I will say, "Man, oh man, that was a great episode. I really enjoyed that episode. I thought it was cool. Actually, I love the pairing of these two episodes as we're about to get into Lethe/Lethe/Lethe. I looked it up, and there's like 3 different definitions, and no one seems to be sure. Because they're both rescue missions. And they're both about two elements of the war. One is physical and one is mental.
Ooh,
2 fronts, as I like to call them. Yes, the Klingons believe they have martial superiority, and as we shall discover in Lethe, the Vulcans believe they have intellectual superiority.
They do.
So, well, there may be a third front, but we just can't get to it. I don't want to spoil things for anybody. All right, are you ready to move on to Lethe?
Yes.
Lethe?
Yep. Blub, blub.
Blub, 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 blub.
Blub, 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 blub.
Okay, so episode 6 of Star Trek Discovery is called Lethe or Lethe or Lethe.
Yep.
And
one of the 3.
It's a name for one of the rivers in the underworld, or also possibly derived from the Greek word for the hidden or hidden thing. Maybe from Leto. I don't want to get into it. I went down a rabbit hole.
I thought we'd already done something that was like a river of the underworld. Why does that ring a bell?
I think I just mentioned this last week because we were mentioning Lethe. That it's a
my
river.
brain
Because
catching up there.
I tell you unimportant things sometimes. I share with you all the Google searches that I do.
Tidbits.
Sure, tidbits. Let's call them
Tidbits.
that. All right, episode 6, Lethe. We begin on Vulcan. What? And it's Sarek, and he's watching like a ship come up to his like docking port, and somebody comes up from behind him and says, "Live long and prosper, Ambassador Sarek." And he turns around and he says, "Live long and prosper, Adjunct Vlatak. We are headed to the concrete system." And so this is Sarek, who's Michael's adoptive father, and he's going on some sort of like diplomatic mission with this assistant Vlatak. And we understand that Vlatak doesn't quite know what it is, because he says as they're taking off, "May I inquire as to the nature of our diplomatic mission?" And Sarek responds with, "If there was such thing as a Sarek stinger, this would be one." He says, "Allow me to be diplomatic and ask that you do not." Ooh, don't ask me what I'm about, son.
Was that a Vulcan or a Vulcan?
It was a Vulcan, big time.
I, Vulcan.
You sure can. So they're flying, and he sort of says, sometimes in times like these, ignorance is important. Smash cut. Do 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 do. Tilly and Michael are running together in their super. Oh God, the outfits when we get to these episodes really start to do something. They make me feel some type of way. They have workout clothes that say disco on them, and I want them. I don't even work out. I would start working out if I had a disco suit. Anyway,
I can get you a disco suit, Aki. That's not
are they
a
for
problem.
sale? Are they online? Or something?
Yes,
you can get disco stuff.
They're so online, yeah.
Let me scrape some ducats together and get myself some disco stuff. Man, oh man. Yeah, okay.
Start running around your neighborhood.
I'll be just, hey, what's up? Yeah, I'm on Discovery. So Tilly is being trained by Michael because Michael's, I guess, taking it upon herself. She feels a connection to Tilly, and she wants her to succeed, to become a captain. And so she's sort of training her for she's like, you got to do this. You got to shave time off your laps because that will give you a physical commendation, and then you'll be able to go to cadet something level, and then you go to executive first class, and then you move to the Enterprise or something, and then sooner enough you're a thing. But you have to start here by shaving a few minutes off of your time. And she says, see your path, stay on it, and reach your destination. Very Vulcan moment for Michael. It's very
Indeed.
Vulcan.
I, Vulcan.
At the same time that is happening, concurrently, as we discussed a few minutes ago, Lorca and Ash Tyler are definitely having the time of their lives, fighting on the weird thin holodeck tube. And they're fighting Klingons, and they're like, you go low, you go high, double round, flat. And they do all these kind of cool, weird two-man, pew, 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 pew. And while they're doing it, Lorca's quizzing him. So they're fighting, killing Klingons. And he's like, hey, where are you from? And he's like, oh, I'm from Seattle, et cetera, et cetera. Eventually they finish. I think Lorca gets shot, but he gets injured. But they apparently succeeded the program. And Lorca sees that Tyler tries to be like, hey, you got more kills than me. And Lorca's like, what are you kidding? You got 36. He says, never apologize for excellence. And then he offhandedly makes an offer to Tyler to be his security head of security. Tyler, who just got there. Yeah. Chief of security. Yeah, exactly. Yep. And Tyler's like, oh, cool, man. Whatever, dude. I like Tyler. But at this moment, he's kind of he's got a little bit of
a bit of a bright nose.
Hey, well, yeah. Oh, man. So great. Yeah, you did better than me, man. Kind of laid back. Kind of cool. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I just want to be part of it. Yeah, man. Cool. Anyway, Tyler, you're nice. Back on the Vulcan ship, Sarek is monologuing, as Vulcans do. He's like, oh, according to this computer, we are a few minutes from our destination. And when he does that, Vlatak takes something out and injects it in his arm that starts to make his arm glow. And Sarek is still talking to himself. He's like, why have we not dropped out of warp? Oh, we have changed course. This is strange. And he turns around to look at Vlatak, whose arm is starting to glow. And Vlatak is like, you wanted to do this thing. Anyway, we find out that Vlatak is one of these Vulcan, I guess they're called logic extremists.
Yes.
And he does not. Yeah, something like that. A fanatic. Yeah. And Sarek is like, you're one of those, a fanatic. I love this scene. And it made me think that as much as we talk about how Discovery does Klingons so well, they also do. Vulcans have historically been given a lot more material. You got your Spocks, you got your T'Pols, you got your, Tuvoks. But they also did this Vulcan to Vulcan thing where they're just talking, and he realizes that this guy is turning himself into a bomb, and yet they're still discussing, and it's totally logical. There's no sweat or screaming. And so anyway, Vlatak is basically saying you want humans to integrate with Vulcans. They are inferior to us, and my death will be a rallying cry. And he holds up his live long and prosper thing as his whole body goes bright, and it looks like maybe Sarek gets to a shield thing on the board quick enough. But the ship definitely explodes while still in warp, and we don't know what happened to them. Cut back to Michael and Tilly going to breakfast. They run into Ash Tyler, who's like, hey, what's up, man? What's going on, ladies? And, Tyler's like, oh, yeah, I'm whatever. Oh, you're Michael? Sweet. I feel like we should judge people on what they do, not on what their history is, whatever. Pretty laid back, pretty cool. Yeah. And he's does this handshake thing to Michael, which is kind of goofy, very extended arm across the table, which Michael eventually takes. Yeah, exactly.
After getting a kick under the table from Tilly.
Yeah, from Tilly. Tilly kind of kicks Michael. It's hey, be cool.
Who thinks Tyler's cute?
Yeah, well, Tilly, yes. Tilly, I love Tilly. She likes to feel feelings.
She does.
Michael takes his hand, but then gets up and she starts to feel weird. And they're like, are you okay? And she's like, yes. And then she's like, no. And then she collapses. And as she collapses, she sees Sarek collapsed. And this is they go into that weird space that they went into when their Katras were connected in episode 2 or episode 1. But we realize she now sees that Sarek is injured. And she goes in this weird place, and then she goes into a memory that Sarek is having, which is like Sarek and Michael's, adopted mother, Amanda, talking on the day of her graduation, and Sarek is telling them that Michael did not get into the Vulcan Science Academy. And Amanda can't believe it, and Michael's sort of embarrassed, and she gets chided by Sarek for being humiliated. She's like, humiliation is a human emotion. And she goes, I am sorry that I'm not good enough for this. And Michael's watching this in the third person, and then Sarek in the memory turns around and sees the real Michael, and he's like, what are you doing here? And she goes, what? You brought me here. And then he like does some kind of weird Vulcan martial arts and knocks her out of his mind. And he goes, get out of my head. And she wakes up on the thing in the sick bay, and she's like, oh, Sarek. And they're like, okay, relax. It's Culber and Tilly, and I think Lorca's there. And she sort of explains the whole thing with, so what happened was when she was a kid, these same extremists, because she had been adopted by Sarek and Amanda, bombed the school that she was at. And that's when Sarek saved her life. She had been dead for 3 minutes after they literally killed her. And he came in and did a Vulcan mind meld and shared his Katra with her, which is like a frowned upon procedure, but like it's kind of okay. But now they share a metaphysical soul. So when they get injured, they feel it with each other, and they're connected across space and time. And she's like, we have to go save Sarek. It's important. He's an important ambassador. And Lorca's like, oh, okay, maybe. And then so Lorca goes and he talks to Starfleet Command, the Vulcan at Starfleet Command, and they go like, it's true. Hey, we didn't want to tell you this, but the Vulcan High Command was going to this planet to talk to some of the families that had been kicked out by Cole to maybe talk about a peace treaty. And Lorca's like, oh, so the Vulcans went behind our back to try and clean up our mess because we're so illogical. And he's like, you know what? We're going to go save Sarek. And High Command says, absolutely not. And he just like shuts the screen off and he's like, let's jump to wherever Sarek was last seen. And they jump to, it's like a weird nebula that's like full of like really juicy, weird, exotic particles. Mm-hmm. And when they jump there, we see that like Michael's able to sort of connect to him. Oh, it's the Uridia system, the Delta. Sorry. Oh, I wrote all these things down. Come on, you know me.
I wrote it down.
Yes, so the disco I wrote, because I was obsessed with disco at this point. The disco jumps to that nebula, and Michael's like, I can sort of feel him, but he's kind of pushing me out. Yeah, disco. And so Michael and Lorca go to Stamets, who Stamets has now got this weird thing happening ever since he connected to the mycelial network, and this is when we discover it. He's like very groovy now. They're like, hey, he's like, oh, sweet, man. Yeah. Oh, that's crazy. He literally is acting sort of like he's like high, like a very blissful high. So they're trying to talk to him about this serious thing. And he's like, oh yeah. Oh, that would be cool. We can't take the ship into the nebula because you know what happens when we go in? And they're like, what? And he's like, it explodes, baby. Yeah. Anyway, they ask him to build a thing that will increase Michael's like mental Katra thing. I love this episode because it had classic Star Trek mumbo jumbo. They were like, we're not going to deal with the science of this. Just, we need a thing that does a thing. And they're like, we can go in there. If we can't take the ship, we'll take a shuttle. And I want Tilly to go in with me because she's smart and she can handle the amplifier machine. And then Lorca's like, sounds great. And I want Ash Tyler to fly you. So the trio are put together. I also liked that I think Michael had suggested Tilly because she is actively trying to get Tilly sort of noticed and commendated for her service. So we cut to them on the ship with Michael's got like the headpiece or whatever. And Lorca says to Ash, make sure she comes back in one piece. And he's like, not a scratch, sir. And he's like, wasn't talking about the ship. And he like does this thing to Michael and he says like, I was talking about her. And Tyler's like, okay.
And he says, and if you
yes. He says, and bring her back in one piece or don't come back at all.
That's it.
I also noticed that Lorca likes to finalize his conversations with Ash with like an arm squeeze, which I think is pretty funny. I don't know.
I didn't even notice that.
when he makes him security officer, he goes like, you can be security officer if you want. He goes, accept. He's like, all right. And he squeezes his arm. And then here he says, come back with her in one piece, or don't come back at all.
Shoulder squeeze? Is that
and he gives him like a little shoulder squeeze and then walks out. I don't know. It's just a nice touch for their weird relationship. So they go into the nebula. There is a B plot line. So there's this A plot line, which is them trying to figure out where Sarek is and save them. And the B plot line is Admiral Cornwall shows up.
Cornwall.
Cornwall.
Cornwall's a place.
I love Cornwall.
Cornwall is the lady.
Mm-hmm. Admiral Cornwell. There's a character. No, I don't need to get distracted. Admiral Cornwell arrives, and she in her freighter, and she actually wants to come aboard in person. So it's Kat again from last episode, and she's kind of like, she shows up and she sort of gives Lorca a dressing down for disobeying a direct command from Starfleet. And he's sort of like, I had to do it. I got, you guys are these like weird rules and things are for admirals sitting back, but we're on the front lines of a war. And he's like, why are you even here? And she's like, I'm here as a friend. And then he like walks over to his desk and pulls out a big old bottle of whiskey. And he's like, well, why don't we stop talking like Starfleet officers and start talking like friends? Hold on. Why don't we stop talking like Starfleet officers and start talking like friends? And she gives him a look, and they get a look. Anyway, cut to, boom, back to the shuttle. Michael's getting strapped in. She explains to Tilly that this memory she feels is Sarek's. If these are his dying thoughts, it's because he's remembering the day that she failed him, that she failed to be good enough to join the Vulcan Science Academy, because Sarek's whole thing was like he thought humans and Vulcans could integrate and work together as equals, and she was supposed to be that, and she couldn't. But anyway, she's going to try to save him.
She could not.
She could not. You want to hit it.
I Vulcans.
She can't. And so she goes back into the memory. We get a little bit more of like what's going on here. Or what we do, which is interesting, is in that moment we see Michael and Amanda before Sarek comes and tells them that she didn't get into the Science Academy, and that's when Amanda gives her the Alice in Wonderland book that she is so fond of and quotes when she's in extreme duress. But then she fights Sarek in his mind again, and they do like a lot of Vulcan martial arts, and he's like, you must get out, and he kicks her out. Well, he doesn't really kick her out. They're fighting, and then because she's like her body is freaking out, Tyler orders Tilly to take her out, even though Michael said, no matter what happens, leave me in there. So they pull her out, and everyone's upset. We cut back to the Discovery, and I'm going to call them by their first names. Kat, Admiral Cornwell, and Gabe, Captain Lorca, are like drinking. They're kind of chilling, having a little whatever. And they're like, hey, remember that time we went to see the Perseids? And he's like, oh. She's like, you don't remember that? And he's like, oh, I'm just remembering it was so long ago. And she's like, we were so young and so full of hope, and blah, 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 blah. And then she kind of like brings it back around to like his mental state. And he's like, hey, you trying to psychology me? And she's like, oh, well, I'm here's a friend. And he moves in close and he says, hey, if you're here for 50 minutes, I think I got a much better way we could spend that time. He says it in a much cooler way. I obviously do not have.
I think he was saying, if you're going to like therapize me, and we're going to spend 50 minutes.
If we're going to do a 50-minute session, why don't we do a session, dig? Mm-hmm. And then she stands up and removes her comm badge, and I wrote parentheses
like this.
Sexy times. Yeah, she does exactly. Puts it on the table. Also, very sexy shot. I just want to commendations to because it's like 2 glasses of scotch in the scotch bottle, and the gold thing comes down, and you're like, oh, they're about to get freaky. Okay, so we go back to Michael. Michael goes back into Sarek's mind. They fight again. Actually, Tyler does give her a little bit of a pep talk before she goes back in. He says, like, people don't remember the things they were disappointed in before they die. They remember the people they love, and they remember the things that they wish they could have done better. So maybe what he's actually doing is trying to remember something he wished he had done differently. So going back in with that, she sort of like fights, they fight, they do a bunch of Vulcan grabs on each other, and she says, what is it that you're trying to hide from me? What is it you wish you had done differently? And he goes, well, today was not, you didn't fail me this day. I failed this day. And he shows her, and this is like pretty intense. Okay.
Vulnerable.
That when Sarek is talking to the head of the Vulcan Science Academy, the guy basically gives him an ultimatum. He's like, hey, Michael's really great, top of her class. She beat all the Vulcans in all the tests. And also your son, your half Vulcan son, Spock, seems like he's got some potential too. And he says, like, I love your interesting idea, your crazy idea that humans and Vulcans can live together, but it needs to be, he uses the word titrated, which I don't need to get into that, but obviously I went into a rabbit hole on that. It
totally
means,
Googling that later.
yeah, it's interesting. It's a chemistry term, but it basically means the least amount of something that will allow something to be something. So he's like, if we're going to have some kind of human in the Vulcan Science Academy, I'm not going to have two. One is enough. That's the maximal amount we need to be like, there's a human here.
Yep.
And he says, like, you can choose Michael can go in, or your young son Spock, who eventually may want to join, can go in. Yeah. And Sarek says, you making me face an impossible choice. And the guy says, your response is not logical. So then Michael finds out that Sarek, he chose Spock over Michael, and he is ashamed of it. And then because
Spock chose his own path and decided not to go.
Yeah, well, Spock is as hot-headed as Michael is cool-headed, if that makes sense. It's kind of interesting. They're like a yin and yang, the brother and sister, which maybe will be explored in future episodes. Who knows? And so she's able to mind meld with Sarek and do the same, like do Katra back to him so that he wakes up on the bridge of his failing ship and is able to turn on his beacon, and they're able to find him. And they zoom back to Discovery. Meanwhile, on Discovery, Lorca is asleep after doing the deed with Kat, and she's looking at these weird scars on his back. And then she goes to touch one, and then he like he is asleep from a dead sleep. He pulls a phaser out from under his pillow and like aims it at her, and he's like, hyperventilating and stuff. And she's like,
yeah, and he's like, got her by the neck, pinned down.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, so sorry. And she's like, you're sleeping with a phaser. You're definitely not in your right state of mind. I'm not sure what's going on with you. Something you lied on your psychological reviews. It's pathological. And this is the first time he really shows emotion. He's like, please don't take my ship away from me. It's all I've got. There is something wrong with me. I'm not well, but this command is all I have. I need this. And she goes like, it's a shame that I can't tell if this is the real you or not, but we're going to talk about this. And she leaves.
Yep.
Yeah. You about to say something?
No.
Oh, okay. You look like you're about to be like, yeah. And let me tell you something. Okay.
Not yet.
Sarek is on board. Lorca comes by and says, hey, I'm proud of you. And Michael says, well, I wish Sarek was proud of me, but it's weird. Despite my Vulcan upbringing, I'm feeling a lot of emotions right now. She goes over to Sarek. They have a very awkward exchange, which I would describe as full-on Vulcant for both of them. It is awkward. And Lorca also offers her an official position on the bridge as science officer. And he says, don't you dare refuse it. And she says, I accept. And that's when she says the whole, like, it is an honor to work under a captain like you. And he's like, all right, cool, whatever. They also discussed that, like, yes, Sarek was going to try and do this peace treaty thing with some of the Klingons. And now he won't make it because he's in pretty bad shape. And Lorca's like, well, Catherine, Admiral Cornwell could probably do it. She's already halfway there. She's here. She could be the representative in his stead. So that sort of is what is agreed to be done. And Cornwell goes to the she says before she leaves, like, I'm going to go to this negotiation. When I get back, you're going to need to step down. We'll figure out a way. I don't want to ruin your career, but you're not in your right mind. So when I get back from this negotiation, you will lose command of the Discovery. She gets on the ship and she bounces. Michael goes to get some green tea, and Ash kicks a chair out for her, and they have a little discussion, heart to heart, quotable moments where they talk about feelings. And he says, like, you're just learning what it is to be human. and it's very sweet. And we're like, okay, so that's a real will they, won't they moment. Flash to Cancri 4, where the meeting is happening. Caldwell comes in. She thanks the elders of Cancri 4 for inviting them. She's talking to the two Klingon houses, and she's like, I think we can come to some accord. And then it's a trap. Boom, 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 boom. They kill her escort. They kill the Cancri elders, and they take her captive. And then Cole comes in over one of those big, holographic things. And he's like, sweet. Now that you've done that, I will share with you my cloaking technology. Bring me the prisoner. And that is the end of the episode. Lethe, or Lethe.
Yep. But then, no, is that the end of it? Because we know that Admiral Cornwell's been captured, and Saru goes back to Lorca's quarters and says, oh, they've captured Admiral Cornwell. What do we do? And Lorca says, well, let's call Starfleet and ask them.
Oh, that's right.
And then you know that he's being a bit nefarious because he didn't think twice to go and save Sarek or do other things. And Saru's like, "Are you sure?" And he's like, "Well, we don't. We're in the middle of a war.
Gotta go by the book here.
By the book."
Well, it's hard to determine at this point if he's. It's definitely something's going on. It's curious. It's self-preservation where he's like, "I'm not going to break any more rules because I'm on thin ice."
Yep.
Or is something truly nefarious happening here where he's like, "Oh, she's the only one who knows that I'm not well." So let's let her be captured for a while so that I can keep my ship and do what I want to do out here,
Yep.
But it is such a strange change of character from earlier in the episode that we know something is going on. And so
We do.
Lethe is truly an exploration of the mind.
The underworld mind river
Yes,
thing.
what is going on in our psychologies? It's
Yes.
Michael and Sarek and Lorca and everyone's mind is kind of being assaulted in Lethe. So I thought these were two great episodes to do back to back.
They were. And good job on that rundown.
I
was a
am
tough rundown.
exhausted.
That was a lot.
I'm going to sleep for 100,000 days. And I don't envy you having to edit this, quite honestly.
Thank you so much. I know. And I get no time. I have to do this for Monday.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
So fun.
I am
So
sorry.
fun.
Well, I think,
Anyway.
should we do quotable moments? Do you have any quotes?
I forgot.
I will share with you.
Do you have some?
I
ready?
have two. Yeah, sure.
Okay, let's do our quotable moments. Quotable moments.
Thank you, Angela Lansbury. I will do some quotable moments now. From the first episode, Choose Your Pain, I really enjoyed, even though she's basically about to torture Lorca, I really liked Laurel's statement to him after he tries to get a rise out of her. She says to him before she turns on the lights, "How strange space must look to you now, seen through those damaged eyes. A cosmos full of agonizing light. Another creature might have slumped into the darkness, but not you. You seek glory. Perhaps you realize glory must be earned through sacrifice and pain." And that's when she turns the lights on. Anyway, it's pretty dope. English is her second language, so she pretty much killed it there. And then in the most recent episode, Lethe, I really liked what Michael says at the end, the feelings thing, which I did write down. It took forever. It's so long, but I will try to make it brief here. She's having tea with Ash, and she says, "All my life, the conflict inside of me has been between logic and emotion, but now it's my emotions that are fighting. I think about him," she's referring to Sarek, "and I want to cry, but I have to smile, and I feel angry, but I want to love, and I'm hurt, but there's hope. What is this?" And Ash responds, "That's just being human." And those are my quotable moments.
Those are good quotable moments.
There were some good. Hey, man, I know a lot is happening. Pew, 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 pew. Explosions and people getting stabbed, blah, 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 and tardigrades and stuff. But the writing sometimes ascends to real, what I would call classic Star Trek, like Picard at his best, some of the best writing Star Trek has had. So anyway, whatever. I'll editorialize later.
Wow, that was a lot.
It was so much. Is anyone out there?
Don't know. At this stage, have we lost them all?
Let's get into next time.
Let's get into next time.
Next time on Set Phasers.
All right. Well, we come to the end of the program. So next time on Set Phasers, we will do another two episode.
What what?
Yeah, next time we'll do a 2-episode episode. We will be doing episode 7, which is entitled "Magic to Make the Sanest Man Go Mad," and episode 8, which is entitled some Latin, "Si vis pacem parabellum." Or
Sounds
if
like
you
something to do
really
with
do
peace.
Latin,
See
si vis pacem parabellum. But I don't know. I
See the
Googled
other
Latin
equal
today.
side of peace. I don't know. That's my
It's
guess.
if you want to see peace,
Yes, peace, peace,
parabellum is like prepare for war, get ready for war. Bellum is definitely war.
Yeah. For something for ready yourself for war, maybe.
Yeah, ready for war. So it's like it's kind of cute. It's like if you want peace, get ready for
Ready
war.
for war.
And that is an
that's a good Latin proverb. I like
It
that.
sure is. Yeah. It's too bad the V's are W's in Latin because they're really in
Yes.
modern English. Vis has a nice thing, but vis sounds kind of ridiculous. Si vis pacem. But I don't know. It's growing on me. Oh, boy. All right. Well, we have one special announcement. We'd like to shout out one of our patrons who is, his name is Kyle Jaster, but he's signed up for Patreon at the commander level. So I would just like to say to Kyle, Commander Jaster, you have the comm. Oh,
And
live long and
also,
prosper.
Live long and prosper.
And also, Klingon Maktajash.
Yes,
We want to
yes.
say all the things to you.
Kapla. Yeah.
Kapla. And it's
Do we have any other Klingon phrases that we can throw out?
I have a few, but I'll save them. You got to keep a few in reserve.
Yeah.
Anyway, speaking of, he clearly enjoys the concept of this episode. If you've enjoyed the episode, we just want to thank you for joining us. And you can catch us every Friday at 8 o'clock Eastern on Facebook Live or as a podcast every Monday, wherever podcasts come from. So please subscribe and give us a rating.
Yes, indeed. And if you want to join us on Patreon, we will be doing our first Netflix watch party coming up soon. So I think this weekend we will announce so if you are a patron, you get voting rights on the shows the show that we will watch for the watch party. So you could be a patron and take part, and then we can all hang out together in this virtual watch party. Wouldn't that be
Watching
cool?
Star Trek, one of the many series that are available.
One of the many series that are available on Netflix. So don't forget, we are on Facebook and Instagram at Set Phasers Podcast. Feel free to follow us and join in the conversation of all things Trek.
And if you would like to support our continuing mission, if you would like to vote on what we watch at our Netflix watch parties or any of that cool stuff, you can definitely join us and patronize us. We can take it by going to patreon.com/setphasers and signing up.
Until next time, I'm Steph Mans.
And I'm Aki Burmese, and this has been Set Phasers, a highly illogical Star Trek podcast.
Computer. End program.